Okay. So theories of social stratification. So we are done with this. Now what is left? Criticism. So we have done with Parsons theory. What is Parsons theory? Society is based on consensus in terms of norms and values, right? And people tend to evaluate themselves towards the conformity to the norms and values, and stratification is nothing but a system which is rewarding the people who conform to the norms and values of the society. Okay, and then comes Davis and Moore. This is the most important theory that we have seen. So here we have seen some propositions and then objections by Melvin Tumin and clarification given by Davis and Moore. So we are done. This is a theory. So if you see this Davis and Moore theory on stratification means proposition, objections is part of the theory. I told you that, and then clarification. So it's not only proposition is the theory. Proposition plus objection plus clarification. So that's formed the theory. Now comes criticism, right? So when you get this question, critically analyze, right? If you get this question, how you need to write this? First you will have an introduction, right? So you'll be writing an introduction. There you will briefly talk about what is stratification and how theories of stratification came, and 1 or 2 lines you talk about Parsons, initial functional theory, and then comes to this. So maybe you will take 40 words for this, presume that it's a 20 marker, then you explain this, okay, then comes to this part, critically analyze, and for that you will follow this, CCR. So for thinkers we need to be very specific with this, but these just like we normally follow just one line, just match the condition. This is a requirement. When I say critical analysis, there is a requirement. So you just need to match the requirement, means we just need to match the expectation of the examiner. You don't want to write too much. The C means contribution. Okay, so you don't want to write 1-2 paragraph of this theory, contribution of this theory, maybe one line. After writing this theory, before we start criticism, just write, although this theory has been criticized in these ways, it has contributed in understanding the social differences, inequalities, and one simple line, that's fine. Okay, just that we need to follow that order. We are telling the examiner that we are, satisfying all your demands. And then comes this criticism. So that's what we are going to discuss now. And towards the end, you will end with a positive note. That's the relevance. So even though, so you have written the theory, you have discussed the criticism, and then you will end up with by saying that even though it is criticized on these account, this theory is relevant in this society, right? As long as the stratas are there, as long as these positions are there, as long as this inequality is there, as long as this distribution of reward is there, it is relevant. Okay, simple. So for this, you don't want to mug up anything. Just one line of contribution, one line of relevance, right? When I say, as long as there is a stratified position in the society, as long as there is inequality in the society, or as long as this differential distribution of rewards is there, it is relevant. Now, at least, can you tell me, what is the drawback of this theory? Just any criticism. What do you think? It's very simple, because here he is only talking about what this theory is based on. What? This theory is all about different positions in society. Some are important, some are less important, and he is assuming, they are assuming that there is equal opportunity for all, so that you can compete, you can go to the top. So Firstly, they are assuming that there is equal opportunity to all, right? Then only, this is going to be functional, otherwise it is not going to be functional. So first is like, you are assuming everybody can compete, everybody can go to the top. That is a criticism, you can say. Secondly, this theory is applicable to open system or closed system. It is only applicable to open system, but there is another system also we have seen, right? Closed system also there, where mobility is not there. So here, it is open, it is only for open system. So another criticism, and you know how many you want to write a critical analysis? After writing an intro of 40 words, after writing this theory in, proposition, objections, clarification, here itself you have given 3-4 criticisms. Now how many criticism you want? Max 3 or 4. That's it. Okay, so first you are saying that the assumption is that equal opportunity to all, but that's not the reality. Second, assume it is only applicable to open system, but there are closed system which you cannot explain by using this theory, and this is only applicable in class system, but there are different other stratification also. Like, is it applicable to gender? Is there a positions based on gender? Is it applicable to ethnicity? No, it is not applicable to any other stratification. This theory is applicable only to one stratification. You remember, we have seen multiple stratification system. Is it applicable to age-based stratification? No. Gender-based stratification? No. Ethnicity-based stratification? No. None of the other stratification this is going to be applicable. Correct? So it's only applicable in open system, it's only applicable in class system, it is presuming that equal opportunities given to all, right? So that itself was 3, and there are more. Marxian criticism is there, Weberian criticism is there, all that I will give you. But let me tell you, practically speaking, you may not be able to recollect all these, but for the learning purpose, understanding purpose, I'll make you write. But now itself you think that when I write this theory, even assume that it's a 20 marker, still when you write an introduction, right, and then you start writing these, you have to write proposition, because you cannot simply write the criticisms only. If you need to critically analyze, first you have to tell what is it, then you critically analyze, right? And then you need to write at least one line on contribution. Then you have only chances there to write max 3 criticism. But I'll give you 10 criticism minimum. From that you can take only but the fact is this, you can only take 3. We learn so much, I'll give you also so much, but this is the reality. So what we need is, you don't want any other resources, don't just keep reading so many PDFs or resources. What is there with you, just try to consolidate that. That's the objective. In sociology, read one book 5 times. You need to reproduce as much as possible in sociological language, the language I speak. That is why some important topics, that's why I handle it completely, fully. Because sometimes when that exact language you remember. Okay? So write the criticisms. Next paragraph. Although this theory has been acknowledged as a valid sociological theory, of stratification, still it suffers from number of logical errors. Still it suffers from number of logical errors. Okay, first one. This theory is more suitable for understanding class stratification. This theory is more suitable for understanding class stratification. Underline class stratification. other forms of social inequalities, other forms of social inequalities cannot be explained with this theory. For example, gender stratification is not based on functional importance of position. Rather it's based on gender inequalities are imposed by culture. It's based on culture. That's enough. Either you write it's based on culture, or you write rather gender inequalities are imposed by culture. Gender inequalities are imposed by culture. Similarly, racial and ethnic stratification cannot be explained by using this theory. Understood, no? So you can only explain class-based stratification by using this theory, as it is based on functional importance. Gender is not based on functional importance. It is imposed by culture. Next point. This theory is based on the unrealistic assumption that society provide equal opportunities to all. Unrealistic assumption that society provide equal opportunities to all. Unrealistic assumption that society provide equal opportunity to all. But in reality, number of factors like parental background, education, etc. influence number of factors, parental background, education, etc. have a greater influence on people. Means what? Some people, if their parental background is good, I mean in terms of money, rich, right, or they are capable, then they'll get good education, good healthcare, so they will get a better opportunity or better advantage, because this guy is talking about training and sacrifice required. So if you need better training, then you'll have to pay more. Then I told you one more. Which one you can talk about? Yeah, this is applicable to open system, right? This theory explain open stratification system. And cannot be applicable to closed system. Which example you can write here? caste system. For example, the rigidity of the caste system, for example, rigidity of the caste system could not be explained with this theory. Rigidity of the caste system cannot be explained with this theory. Enditi? Speeda? The rigidity of the caste system. This theory could not explain the rigidity of the caste system. Okay. Next point. This theory cannot justify the inherent exploitation generated by distribution of rewards. According to Marx and the later Marxist the distribution of rewards are controlled and managed by the dominant class to satisfy their own interest. Thus, stratification is not fulfilling the interest of society. Thus, stratification is not fulfilling the interest of society. Rather, it satisfies the interest of few. Few people, the interest of few. Okay, what does this mean? So Davis and Moore is talking about differential distribution of rewards, and that is functional for society because you are giving different rewards. Talented people will come to the top because of the rewards. But what Marx and Marxist is saying is this entire reward system is created by the dominant class, the haves, the upper class. All these we will discuss in detail when it comes to Marx. But just understand this, all these are created by the upper class to satisfy their own interest. So it is kept in such a way, their people will always get rewarded, others won't get anything. Right? Lower class won't get anything. It is everything for the upper class. And this is what elite self-recruitment theory. Self-recruitment theory means you keep your family will keep continuing, right? Doctor's son, doctor is becoming doctor, IAS officer becoming IAS officer, capitalist is becoming capitalist, like that. Just write that word also. This view has also been supported by elite, ELITE, elite self-recruitment theory. This theory is something which we will be studying later in C. Wright Mills. Elite, ELITE, elite self-recruitment theory. Means your family members, like that. Your next generation. So you kept it in such a way, they keep getting the benefit. That's fulfilling your interest, not the interest of society. Interest of few dominant class. Just criticism. This is enough, but just write a couple of more. This theory is little relevant in postmodern society. Next point, Anna. This theory is little relevant in postmodern society as the strata-based inequality seemed to be disappearing, and the postmodernist claim the existence of individual inequalities rather than strata-based. Postmodernists claim the individualized inequality. The modern society is based on more of individual inequality rather than strata. Every individual is different. Every individual is, between them, there is inequality. You cannot classify people on a strata. Even if you classify, we all belong to middle class, but still there is a big difference. Unlike before. Before it's almost the same. Lifestyles will be same. Income is almost same, expenses will be same, aspirations is also same, but now it's not the case. Even within middle class also, there is a big difference. There are people who are living moderate life, there are people who are living like upper class also within middle class, and that is why middle class suicide rates are higher. Why? What happens? Because of your higher aspirations. You have salary for a Maruti, but you buy BMW with loan. And then eventually you'll commit suicide. So basically this we will learn, we'll study all this later. Now just write W.L. Warner also. W.L. Warner. One paragraph is enough. W.L. Warner. Warner in his famous book, just write Warner in his famous book, Yankee City, 1949. Yankee City, 1949. While reporting on social classes, based on status or lifestyle in few American communities developed a different justification for the existence of social stratification. According to him, various social stratas are generally separated into relatively distinct segments that have more or less balanced and integrated culture. Balanced and integrated culture. So what is it saying? Society is compartmentalized or understood like segments, right? And each segments have more or less similar lifestyle, status, or it is based on culture. So this is a culture-based or cultural compartmentalization that helps in maintaining the stability. So one type of class here, another here, so that avoid this distrust, hostility, tension among the different classes, right? Segmented in terms of culture. Next sentence. Thus, these stratas ensured cultural stability underlines here cultural stability in society by compartmentalizing people on the basis of different culture. That would underline compartmentalizing people on the basis of culture. This reduces intergroup conflict. അതും കൂടി അണ്ടർലൈൻ reduces intergroup conflict. Self-explanatory അല്ലേ? Different stratas like this only separated, they have different culture, they have different lifestyle. This group have one style, different lifestyle. So there is no mixing and all with them. So that prevent the intergroup conflict possibility. So it could be like, if you keep it in if you see in our society also, you go to this Bhimapalli area, right? You will see one section, some Muslims are staying. The other section, go to the sea area, there are Christians. They are staying. Other side, Hindus are also staying. This kind of compartmentalization you see in many areas. There are some areas, different religion. There are some areas. ഇപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഇവിടേക്ക് തമ്പാനൂർ ഏതോ ഒരു സ്ഥലമുണ്ട്, അവിടെ പോയി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ കുറേ ബ്രാഹ്മിൻസ് ഒരുമിച്ച് കളക്റ്റീവ്ലി അങ്ങനെ എന്തോ ഒരു ഏരിയ like that. So that means they will stay there, others won't come. So that maintain the cultural stability, intergroup conflict also prevented. This is not a big deal. They won't ask this separately. If there is a separate question, only from this. But they will ask you the functional theories of stratification. Just follow the order. Start with Parson, detailed theory of Davis and Moore, and then W.L. Warner, just mention all the three theories. So we are done. Okay, now we have two more. One is Weber and Marx, that we can study under Weber and Marx. So next topic we can move, that is social mobility. Easy chapter another. Basically stratification is a very easy chapter, very high scoring also. See what they can ask you. They can ask fundamentally three questions. One, stratification itself. So social differences that become inequality, that becomes a pattern, so stratification. And then you talk about the four stages. So stratification is asked, then you tell open system, closed system, then you talk about social mobility. So it is connected. Then if they ask social mobility, again you talk about stratification, open system, closed system, then mobility. Then they will ask you three theories: functional theory, conflict theory, Weberian theory. So very straightforward chapter, very easy chapter. Our content is in itself is enough, nothing beyond this. Don't want to read anything else. Okay, just keep reading the same, repeating the same, revise the same, be in a position to reproduce in your own language. Because we have written more, you cannot reproduce exactly the same. Understand the concept, internalize it, and that flow should come. Like the way I speak to you, that way you should be in a position to communicate. Okay. Now, what is social mobility? It is very clear, right? Social mobility means movement. So movement from one strata to other. So social mobility is possible in what system? Open system. So we are not discussing social mobility in closed system, because there is no concept of movement, there is no concept of mobility. So when we talk about mobility, it is open system. So open system means it's either you can go to the top, a poor person becoming rich, or rich person can become poor. Give me an example of rich becoming poor. Business failure. You are at a top class business and business failure. After COVID, you see the scenarios. Or after this green revolution, no, not green revolution, this land reforms. Land reforms, what happened? Land of all these Brahmins and all was taken away. then they became poor actually. When it is redistributed, so this power gone, status gone, money is gone. So after land reforms, there is a downward mobility. Now, land reform led to both upward and downward mobility. How? Land കിട്ടിയവർക്ക് upward ആയി, land പോയവർക്ക് downward ആയി. Right? So land എടുത്തു, redistribute ചെയ്തു from Brahmins or those landlords. They lost the land, they experienced a downward mobility. Those who got the land, the peasants, they experienced an upward mobility. So now you understood upward and downward, movement from bottom to top upward, top to bottom downward. So now are we talking about vertical mobility or horizontal mobility? Vertical mobility. Horizontal mobility means you are moving from one place to other, but sociologically not significant. Like I am a bank manager here in this branch, and I am shifted to transfer to another branch. I am manager here, I am manager there. Is there a positional change? No. What change is there? Geographical change, horizontal change. There is no vertical change. That is not coming under mobility, but we simply write horizontal mobility. So first we make a division, horizontal and vertical. Horizontal and vertical. Now this you understood, right? A sub-inspector here transferred to some other area, sub-inspector there. No change in position, no change in status. It's just the geographical change. So this is not important for us sociologically. What is important for us is this vertical. That means this is upward mobility. Okay. It can be upward. It can be downward. This is upward or downward. Okay, you know absolute and relative poverty. Poverty and what is poverty? Oh, നിങ്ങൾക്ക് start ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ല, leave it. There is a simply BPL, APL, right? We have a poverty line. If you are above that, APL. Below that, below BPL, below poverty line, poor, right? So that is based on an objective criteria. This much income, right? There is a criteria. So that is absolute poverty. If you are above this, you are not poor. If you are below this, you are poor. There is an absolute criteria, right? There is a fixed objective criteria. That is absolute poverty. Why I'm talking about poverty now? I'm talking about mobility. Yeah. So absolute and relative mobility is also there we have. Okay. So let me make you understand poverty, then it is easy to understand this. Relative poverty means you are poor in comparison to other person. Right? For example, yeah, you have an iPhone, he have a normal phone. Both have phone, both are definitely not poor. At least you have the capacity to buy phone, right? But he feel poor compared to you, inferior compared to you. That is relative poverty. Anil Ambani, Mukesh Ambani, both are way above our level and everything, but one feel poor compared to the other person in comparison with. So what do you mean by then absolute and relative social mobility? Like these two, one can experience an absolute upward mobility. How? One person can, just give me one example. One of this can experience, let's suppose they are working as clerk in some office. Both of them working as clerk. How can anyone experience a absolute upward mobility? Promotion. So one person got promotion, clerk become a supervisor. So she experienced a upward mobility. This is absolute mobility because you can see the positional change. But where you stand, there itself, clerk itself. But you both were friends. What do you feel? You compare to that person, there is no change, right? But relative downward mobility. But there is actually no change. In terms of, in absolute terms, you don't have any change. Where you were there only. But you were friends, you were working together. But just because the other person experienced a absolute, that is absolute mobility because there is a change in her position. But your position, there is no change. But you feel relative downward mobility because you were friends, same hostel and everything. Got it? So that is what absolute and relative. One person experience absolute upward mobility, the other person experience relative downward. There is no absolute downward. Position is the same, but it is relative downward. Okay. Okay, then what is intergenerational, intragenerational? Inter means what? Inter college fest എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് എന്താ? Within college ആണോ? Between colleges. So intergenerational എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ രണ്ട് generation. You and your father, right? You and your mother. So എന്തായിരിക്കും intergenerational? Oh, give me one example. Intergenerational upward mobility. For example, your father is a farmer and you becoming an IAS officer. So upward mobility, right? Anyway, we value more IAS officer than farmers. Yeah, relative importance is another question that we discussed, but no dispute here. So IAS officer or son of a farmer becoming IAS officer, intergenerational upward. Son of an IAS officer becoming farmer, intergenerational downward. Okay, so upward, downward, you can experience in your own lifetime also. Like you born as a rich person, but you end up as a poor person, that's downward. You born as a poor person, you end up as a rich person, upward. So in your, that is what intragenerational. But in your lifespan, your skills and other things, that is intragenerational. Inter means between generation. So intragenerational also upward, downward. Intergenerational also upward, downward. Farmer son becoming IAS officer, intergenerational upward. Doctor son becoming a farmer. Are you sure? You can't imagine how much farmers are making. If you are really a good farmer. No, this is correct only. But it is again subjective, right? You don't know what kind of farming you're doing. Are you farming in hectares of land? Or, you know, small amount of land? And a doctor who's just sitting in a clinic, he'll only get 20,000. And you are, you know, farming in hectares of land. That's an entirely different story. So you can't simply say that. But you got the logic, right? When I say, for example, doctor's son becoming a farmer, it is definitely downward, is what I mean to say. But then there is a lot of subjectivity, biases there. These days I know many of my, you know, friends and mentees who are doctors, they come to farming, they do farming, and they do very good in that. All these new technologies and all. We can write. It's a very simple topic. Right. Heading: social mobility. Social mobility. Social mobility can be broadly defined as social mobility can be broadly defined as change in the position of an individual, change in the position of an individual or group in the society. Okay, full stop. Specifically in the context of stratification, it refers to movement of an individual or group from one position to another. From one position to another. The study of social mobility is considered important in the light of following reasons. Okay, let me tell you one thing. Which society is more open, traditional or modern society? Modern society. Why? We have more avenues, more chances. If you want to become rich, quickly you can become. There are a lot of opportunities, a lot of avenues, possibilities, anywhere it is possibility. Modern society. But this kind of opportunities, possibilities were not there before, right? If you want, a single man company can be built now. Single person company, even a billion dollar company can be built now just with the help of AI. You don't want too many workers also. So that kind of opportunity is there. So modern society have more avenues. Traditional society have less avenues. Avenue no slow. You understood, chances, opportunities, possibilities. So when I say, the moment I say more avenues, which society I am indicating? Modern society. When I say less avenue means traditional society, right? So that is very clear. So when I study mobility and the type of mobility and the possibility of mobility, can I also understand the nature of society? There are some societies where mobility is high, means that's a modern society. There are some societies where mobility is low, means traditional society, right? That is something which you can easily understand. So right, that's what I mean by that. Studying the nature of social inequality, studying the nature of social mobility, studying the nature of social mobility helps us in understanding the social inequalities present in different society, social inequalities present in different societies. Social inequalities present in different societies. Thus, indirectly, in order to understand the nature of society, studying social stratification and social mobility will be helpful. In this context, more avenues of social mobility, in this context, more avenues of social mobility indicate which society? Modern society. More avenues of social mobility indicate modern society, and less avenues indicate traditional society. In other words, traditional society is more closed, whereas modern society is more open. Next sentence. Social mobility also reflect social mobility also reflect the changes in society. Ever increasing avenues of social mobility, ever increasing avenues of social mobility indicate the existence of dynamic society. Existence of dynamic society. Okay, next sentence. This concept is considered as integral dimension of the process of modernization as ever increasing avenues indicate a modern society. Okay, that's just an intro. When we started mobility, you just need to write one line only from that. What you need to understand from that is social mobility. If you study, that will help you to understand the nature of society. More the possibility of mobility, it's a modern society. Less the possibility of mobility, it's a traditional society, conservative society. This is the only point that you need to take from that. And then you need to rewrite in your own language. You cannot write all these paragraphs, right? Because our content is entirely different. Mobility, the type of mobility is what we need to write. That is what we need to focus. So define mobility. What is that? Movement of people in different strata, right? Then just mention when you study mobility, this is also helping you to understand the nature of society. More avenues, modern society. Less avenues, traditional society. Now comes to types of mobility. Give a heading, types of social mobility. Mobility എന്ന് മാത്രം എഴുതരുത്, social mobility എന്ന് എപ്പോഴും എഴുതണം. Stratification എന്ന് മാത്രം എഴുതരുത്, social stratification എന്ന് എപ്പോഴും എഴുതണം. Right. The movement of people can be understood in different ways. The movement of people can be understood in different ways, resulting in different types of social mobility. Different types of social mobility. In terms of the direction of movement, there are two types. ഏതൊക്കെ? Vertical and horizontal. That you further divide upward and downward here. വേണമെങ്കിൽ ഇങ്ങനെ എഴുതിക്കോ, സോഷ്യൽ മൊബിലിറ്റി എന്ന് കാണിച്ചിട്ട് ഹൊറിസോണ്ടൽ ആൻഡ് വെർട്ടിക്കൽ എന്ന് എഴുതിക്കോ. അപ്പോൾ ആ ഒരു കാര്യം ചെയ്യും, നിങ്ങൾ സൈഡിൽ അങ്ങനെ ചെയ്താൽ മതി. എഴുതുമ്പോൾ ഇങ്ങനെ എഴുതുക, സൈഡിൽ ആ ഒരു സ്പേസ് ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടല്ലോ, അവിടെ വേണമെങ്കിൽ ഇങ്ങനെ വരച്ചോ. സോഷ്യൽ മൊബിലിറ്റി, ഹൊറിസോണ്ടൽ, വെർട്ടിക്കൽ. വെർട്ടിക്കൽ ഫർദർ ഡിവൈഡ് അപ്വേർഡ്, ഡൗൺവേർഡ്. അപ്വേർഡിൻ്റെ അവിടെ എഴുതിക്കോ, poor becoming rich, downward rich becoming poor. Rest of the examples we'll write in paragraph. അവിടെ തന്നെ വേണമെന്നില്ല, നിങ്ങൾ സെൻട്രൽ വരച്ചാലും കുഴപ്പമൊന്നുമില്ല. ഇത് ഏറ്റവും ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യമാണ്. ഓക്കെ, സോഷ്യൽ മൊബിലിറ്റി, ഹൊറിസോണ്ടൽ, vertical. Vertical can be upward, downward. Upwardly you write poor person becomes simple. You can make it simple now, we'll write it later. Poor to rich, rich to poor. Right. Merton's concept of Merton, Merton's concept of status sequence is an example of upward social mobility. Is an example of upward social mobility. Out of the next point is the land reforms. Land reforms. Okay, land reforms created both upward and downward. Avade ningal ingane venenge edikko upward and downward. So if required you need to explain, otherwise you keep it like this. Land reform, upward, downward. Upward eda those peasants who were landless, who got land, became landlords. Downward eda those landlords whose land is taken away and redistributed, they lost the land, they experienced a downward mobility. ഒരു ലൈൻ അവിടെ എത്തിക്കും. നമ്പർ ഓഫ് ലാൻഡ് ലോഡ്സ് ലോസ്റ്റ് ദെയർ ലാൻഡ്, നമ്പർ ഓഫ് ലാൻഡ് ലോഡ്സ് ലോസ്റ്റ് ദെയർ ലാൻഡ് എക്സ്പീരിയൻസ്ഡ് ഡൗൺവേർഡ് മൊബിലിറ്റി, whereas landless who got the land, whereas the landless who got the land experienced upward mobility. So we have explained vertical. Now just write one line about horizontal. Horizontal social mobility is geographical. Horizontal social mobility is more of geographical in nature. Horizontal social mobility is more of geographical in nature, as in terms of status, it is similar to it is similar in terms of status. It is similar means you are a manager here, you are a manager, no change. Vertical means there is a positional change. Here there is a geographical change, one area to other. Okay, so far is okay, right? Write one more line. Sociologically, little stress is given on horizontal social mobility. Little stress is given on horizontal social mobility. Now give a heading, types of social mobility. Types of social mobility. Types of social mobility. Next sentence. Social mobility is also seen at the level of family. At the level of family. In this context, two types of mobilities are defined. Two types of mobilities are defined. That is, two types of mobilities are defined. Social mobility is also seen at the level of family. In this context, two types of mobilities are defined. Edaka? Family level leda? Intergenerational and intragenerational, right? Two types of mobilities are defined, that is intergenerational and intragenerational. Intergenerational reflects, intergenerational social mobility reflects, you just write intergenerational. When you write an exam, you write it completely. Intergenerational social mobility reflects the positional difference between two generation positional difference between two generation. For example, son of a clerk becoming IAS officer. Further, this can be upward and downward. This can be upward and downward. Bracket le idu intergenerational upward mobility and intergenerational downward mobility. That you need to explain. It's self-explanatory. Okay? Downward ആണെങ്കിൽ നിങ്ങൾ എന്ത് എഴുതും? ഓപ്പോസിറ്റ് എഴുതും. സൺ ഓഫ് IAS ഓഫീസർ ബിക്കമിങ് ക്ലർക്ക്. അതൊരു വിസിബിൾ ആയിട്ടുള്ള എക്സാമ്പിൾ ആണത്. ഓക്കെ? എങ്ങനെ? അത് വെർട്ടിക്കലല്ലേ വരുന്നത്, ഇന്റർജനറേഷനിലാണ് വരുന്നത്. ഹൊറിസോണ്ടൽ വെർട്ടിക്കൽ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഒരു ബ്രോഡ്ലി ഉള്ള ടൈപ്പാണ്. വെർട്ടിക്കലിൽ അപ്വേർഡും ഡൗൺവേർഡും മാത്രമാണ് പറയുന്നത്. മുകളിലേക്ക് പോകുന്നതും താഴേക്ക് വരുന്നതാണ് വെർട്ടിക്കലിൽ പറയുന്നത്. ഇവിടെയും അത് തന്നെയാണ് നമ്മൾ പറയുന്നത്. ബട്ട് അത് ബിറ്റ്വീൻ ജനറേഷൻ. ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന എല്ലാ ടൈപ്പും വെർട്ടിക്കലാണ്. ഹൊറിസോണ്ടൽ നമ്മൾ വി ആർ നോട്ട് ഡിസ്കസിങ് ഹൊറിസോണ്ടൽ. ഇറ്റ്സ് ജസ്റ്റ് ഫോർ ദ സേക്ക് ഓഫ് ടെല്ലിംഗ് ദാറ്റ് മൂവ്മെന്റ് ക്യാൻ ബി ഹൊറിസോണ്ടലി ഓൾസോ, വെർട്ടിക്കലി ഓൾസോ. What is more important for us? Vertical, upside, downside. That is what we are discussing further. We are not talking about horizontal. That just explain one line, it's over. We are not considering that. Intragenerational means the mobility experienced by a person. The mobility experienced by person during lifetime, during his lifetime. Mobility experienced by a person during his lifetime. Okay, again this can be upward and downward. You getting a job, you losing a job, right? Examples എഴുതിക്കോളൂ. വേണമെങ്കിൽ ബ്രാക്കറ്റിൽ അപ്വേർഡ് ആൻഡ് ഡൗൺവേർഡ് എന്ന് എഴുതി വെച്ചോ. ബ്രാക്കറ്റ് യു റൈറ്റ് അപ്വേർഡ് ഡൗൺവേർഡ്. സോ ഇന്റർജനറേഷണൽ അപ്വേർഡ്, ഇന്റർജനറേഷണൽ ഡൗൺവേർഡ്. ഇൻട്രാജനറേഷണൽ അപ്വേർഡ്, intragenerational downward. Land reform, intragenerational. Their generation, they were rich but they became poor. They were poor, they became rich. അത് തന്നെ ഇന്റർജനറേഷണലും ആണ്. കാരണം these poor people were actually sons of rich people, and after losing the land they became poor. Similarly, those who got the land, they were the sons of poor people, but after getting the land they became rich. That is also intergenerational. Intergenerational also. So intergenerational upward downward, intragenerational upward downward. നാല് ടൈപ്പ് ആയില്ലേ? Okay. Next. Apart from this, other types of social mobilities had been identified. Other types of social mobilities had been identified to better understand mobility patterns in society. Mobility patterns in society. Next one, absolute and relative social mobility. Absolute and relative social mobility. Absolute mobility refers to the actual change in the position of a person. Actual change in the position of a person. Whereas relative social mobility is understood in comparison to other. In comparison to other. For example, if a person experiences absolute upward social mobility, by gaining something, നിങ്ങളുടെ അടുത്ത വീട്ടിലെ ഒരാൾക്ക് ലോട്ടറി അടിച്ചു, what do you feel? Relative downward mobility. രണ്ടുപേരും ഒരുമിച്ച് ഒരേപോലെ ഷെയർ ചെയ്ത് ജീവിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരുന്നതാണ്, but now it is not going to happen, right? So he become absolute upward, you become relative downward. Simple. If a person experience absolute upward mobility by gaining something, some other person experience relative downward mobility without losing anything. Okay, next one. Objective and subjective social mobility. Objective social mobility is measured in terms of quantitative criteria, like income, education, occupation, consumption, etc. Okay, subjective social mobility is understood in terms of individuals' own perception of social mobility. Individuals' own perception of social mobility. Individuals' own perception of social mobility. What does that mean? Objective means there is a criteria. You, like for example, I acquire education, then I feel that social mobility. I get a job or I get income. Otherwise, I may feel happy and I feel social mobility even when you become a social media superstar also. Right? That's your own perception. Right? In reality, some other people may not find it good, but I may feel it. Yeah, I do reels and other things, and then I'm becoming a superstar. Then that is social mobility for me. Or we may consider some other person who is doing that. We may consider him as good. He is having some good social mobility. That is subjective criteria. That is individual's own perception. We consider that is best than getting this income or than getting this education. This is best. Okay, that is subjective. That is completely individual's perception. My perception, your perception. Right? Some people will see, I don't want to go for education, I can go for modeling. That is my mobility. Right? That's different perception about individual. Third one. Next one. Structural and circulation mobility. Structural and circulation social mobility. Circulation. Structural and circulation social mobility. Structural social mobility. Structural social mobility is the mobility of people. Is the mobility of people who are already part of. Who are already part of occupational structure. By virtue of occupational structure, by virtue of changes in technology, skills or policy, such people become socially mobile. Such people become socially mobile. On the other hand, there are people who are outside the occupational structure. There are people who are outside the occupational structure. When such people enter into occupation, it refers to circulation social mobility. It refers to circulation social mobility. See, it's very simple. It's this only. Let's say you are part of an occupational structure. You're working in bank, right? So if you see earlier, the bank employees had the toughest time, because you have to write everything and you have to note down all the transaction physically, and by the time they reach home it will be like 9 p.m, 10 p.m, like that only. But now, because of advancements of technologies and the skills and everything, they're able to go in time, and you're able to save time means you're actually getting social mobility. So you are part of this occupational structure, but with the changes in technology, for example, teachers, right? Earlier, if someone want to teach here, even here also, you have to come with PowerPoints and all those, and entire night you need to sit at home and you will prepare, and tomorrow you're coming and taking class also. So more than taking class, you'll have to prepare PPTs and all those things. But now you just give the theme to an AI, you'll get it done. So that is again changes in technology or new skills. So that there is a big, now you have enough time, you can do some other work. Either at least you can spend time in your home. So that is also social mobility. That's structural mobility. But these people who are not part of the structure, they are entering the structure. Now they have a mobility. That is what? Circulation mobility. Next, sponsored and contested social mobility. See, the sponsored contested one, I'll make it very simple. Everyone is competing and contesting for this exam, right? So that is what open competition you're writing. This is contested social mobility. You get that. But if you see some reservations and all, that is some kind of sponsored, because they are getting some extra advantage. So contested means it's through open competition. This reservation I can give as an example for sponsored. You are getting some extra push. There is some kind of, sponsored mobility is there. Got it? Protective discrimination or whatever you want to write, you can write. Just write. Sponsored mobility is one which person acquire due to some policy or support. Sponsored mobility is one which a person acquire due to some policy or support. For example, the policy of reservation or protective discrimination. When you bracket it, functional social mobility. Other functional, it is functional. That is why we are continuing that reservation. That is functional social mobility. And contested social mobility is based on open competition. Okay, there are two more subtopics: avenues of social mobility and then hindrances of social mobility. That we can do on the next day because we won't be able to finish it in time. But I'll quickly go for a recap again of what we have done. But this chapter is done completely. There is some minor topic that we can do later. Any questions you have? Because I'm going to summarize this. So this is what we have started off with. Differences. We started off with differences. Differences will become inequality when values are attached. Values like superiority, inferiority, preferability, rejection, desirability, undesirability. So when you attach these values to the natural or social difference, it becomes inequality. So the differences are always natural or social. Differences may be natural or social. Inequality is always social. Now this inequality become stratification. When there is a pattern of inequality. So you have to identify patterns of inequality. Not all individual instances of inequality can be considered as stratification. Pattern is required. That means every stratification is based on inequality, but not all inequality can be considered as stratification. Right? Now we understood this in 4 stages. What are the 4 stages? Why you need to turn the pages? Second, so there will be differences. Based on the differences, some roles will be given. Male, female are assigned certain jobs, right? And then slowly comparison will start. At the individual level, ranking will come. That's an informal rank order will come, not institutionalized. At the individual level, then evaluation. So this is at the individual level, this is at the societal or cultural level. So here evaluation happens at the cultural level, which lead to a rank order which is formalized and institutionalized and passed on to the next generation through cultural reproduction. Okay, and that becomes the value system. And then this will be perpetuated, this will be continued through rewarding. So these are the 4 stages of stratification. And then comes the different types of stratification. This is a flowchart that I want you to have in your mind, in your book. Later you can understand now. Okay, but by looking at this, everything should trigger in your mind. Open, closed. Okay. Now, open means avenues are present, avenues are absent. Example for open, class. Example for closed, caste. Okay, then we have seen types of stratification. Different types, right? We started off with age set system. So when you write the stratification, you need to write age set system. Dimension, age is the dimension. The stratas, Naila, gender. Old, young, right? Old, young, middle age. That is the age based category. Open or closed? So tell me, when you are writing the types, first you need to write the name, age set system, right? And then what all things you need to write here? Whether it is open or closed. You need to write what dimension. പിന്നെന്താ എഴുതണ്ടേ? Strata. ഈ മൂന്ന് കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് നിങ്ങൾ അതോടെ you need to mention these three things. Any types when you are writing age set system, is it open or closed? Closed. Upward you can go, downside anti-aging is not there. Anti-aging is there, but age reversal is not there, right? Dimension, age, strata, old, young, like this. So this three is what you need to cover. Then gender, right? Male, female, dimension is gender, right? Gender system, strata, okay, dimension. And then we have seen ethnicity, ethnic stratification. We have seen slave system. We have seen estate system. We have seen class system. We have seen caste. Class mean, what are the dimension class? Dimension, income, occupation, education. Strata ആണ് upper class, middle class, lower class. Okay. പിന്നെന്തായിരുന്നു? Income, income, occupation, income, dimension and strata and open or closed? Open. Caste, open or closed? Closed. Dimension, ritual, right? Ritual part. Strata, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Dalits. So we have seen the types. Then we have seen theories. So functional theories, Marx, Weber. This we will look at later. Functional we have seen Parson, Davis and Moore, Warner. Here we have seen propositions, objections, clarifications. Then we have seen social mobility, horizontal, vertical, upward, downward. Then we have seen so many types also: intergenerational, intragenerational, absolute, relative, objective, subjective, circulation, structural, sponsored, contested, and all those. That's it. This is the entire chapter. Easiest chapter, highly scoring chapter. And always remember, everyone will prepare exactly the same. So you should have that kind of clarity. Same thing is what you have written in the first page. If you remember the first page, you have almost written the same, no? But if you feel like if you want this diagram, you can take it. This is a mind map or flow chart that you need to have in your mind. Okay, so we'll stop. Clear, alle? One of the biggest chapter, we are done with it. Small topics under hierarchy, exclusion, poverty. അതെല്ലാം നിങ്ങൾ എവിടെ നിന്ന് കവർ ചെയ്യണം? ആപ്പിൽ വീഡിയോസ് ഉണ്ട്. ചെറിയ ചെറിയ ടോപ്പിക്സ് ആണ്. വേറൊരു ഫാക്കൽറ്റിയാണ് എടുത്തേക്കുന്നത്. Otherwise, Malayalam videos also there. You can watch that. Basida classes under that. Sociology fully there in Malayalam. You can, if you are not comfortable here, you can watch that and complete sociology. In എൻ്റെ lecturesൻ്റെ ഇടയിൽ തന്നെ another faculty is taking small topics. This poverty, exclusion, hierarchy, that I won't take. That is there. Cover it, okay? So, see you next week. Nalai.